Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we're in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land and show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wattamohawks and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henley Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokies. As we're learning from our First Nation partners of the Wasauksing First Nation, I want to stress the importance of accepting our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We look to each other and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. And I'd just like to acknowledge that this month is also Black History Month, and we should pay respect to the Black people that we share this neighborhood with. So I will call this meeting to order and the approval of the agenda. You did receive an addendum with a couple pieces of correspondence and an invitation from the museum on Tower Hill. So with those additions in the addendum, can I have approval of the agenda? Thank you. Okay. And is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I see none. So we move on. Oops. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of Council held on January 15th as circulated. Could I have a motion to that effect? Ken and Mario, all in favor? Thank you. And we move to the public meeting. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Consent application number B 2023-0024-F for a zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0029-F for Vukelik, and a zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0023-F for Ritter. Could I have a motion to move into public meeting? Gail and Terry. All in favor? Thank you. Council will now hold a public meeting for the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of such a bylaw amendment who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide your full name and address to the clerk. No one other than the prescribed persons may appeal an application under the provisions of the Planning Act. If they do not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin prior to the decision of Council, then the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. The purpose of consent application number B 2023-0024-F for Vukelik is to create one new rural residential lot with frontage on Rankin Lake Road. The purpose of the associated zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0029-F is to rezone the proposed severed lot to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which this notice of meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on December 19th, 2023. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
Comments of no concern were received from Hydro One and the Ministry of Transportation.
Is there anyone present in person in council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications? If so, please move to the podium and identify yourself by name and provide your address. Nobody here for that? Has anyone registered to speak to these applications via electronic participation?
The applicant has registered to speak to this application via electronic participation, and I believe is present.
Mr. Kellick, are you online? If so, please say something. No? What's the person on the left there?
That's a staff.
That's a staff, okay. Does council have any questions for anyone? I see no questions, so I think we'll move on. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0023-F for Ritter is to provide an exception to the limited service residential and environmental protection zones.
Hi, sorry, I'm here for Dobrila Vukovic for the rezoning. Sorry, we couldn't unmute ourselves at first.
Will we go back? Do you have something to add?
No, you were just asking if we were present, and we are, but we were having trouble unmuting ourselves. Sorry about that.
There were no questions from council, so we moved on to the next application.
Okay, perfect.
Is that okay?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
So the Ritter request is to provide an exception to the limited service residential and environmental protection zones to permit the construction of a 1.5-story boathouse in the EP zone. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on January 5th, 2024. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from Brian Hindley, Craig Hayhoe, Jim McClellan, Carrie Mueller, Mark Scritch, and the Otter Lake Ratepayers Association.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? Please move to the podium and identify yourself by name and provide your address. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to this application? No? Has anyone registered to speak to this application via electronic participation?
Barry Billings, agent for the applicant, has registered to speak to this application via electronic participation.
And is that you, Mr. Billings?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
You have the floor.
Awesome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barry Billings. I'm a licensed professional engineer, and I'm working for the Ritters, Mike and Jenny, in helping them plan and build their on-water boathouse. Yeah, so I've got a PowerPoint I'm going to share. And just, if I can just, back to the start. Can I confirm that you guys can see the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Not yet, eh? Okay, let's back to Zoom.
You enabled?
Share screen. How's that look?
Thank you. We can see it now.
Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna full screen. I've got about a 10-minute presentation just to, add to sort of the written correspondence that you have. Doesn't seem to be going full screen. There we go. Yeah, so the Ritters, Mike and Jenny, purchased the property back in 2016. They've been living with the property. It's their hope and wish, obviously, like many of us, is that it's going to become a family cottage, a place for their 2 kids and their 6 grandchildren to gather. And it's really a generational type situation. This is not an Airbnb. It's not a rental. Mike and Jenny spent many years in New Hamburg. That's where their primary residence still is. And Mike's a retired veterinarian, University of Guelph grad. So here's the property they purchased. And unlike many properties, this is a large property, 7.8 acres. There's a cottage, which the picture on the left, I've shown the cottage is the little bigger yellow square, but I wanted to show where there's an existing bunkie there, the smaller square. When I do the math, currently they have a 0.4% site coverage, which is very, very low. Frontage on Otter Lake, which is 99 meters, which is great. And their neighbors are all about the same. So it's not a densely populated area of Otter Lake, or densely populated shoreline. The bunkie and the house are actually sort of naturally segregated by a road allowance that the Ritters have on title in favor of their neighbors. So the neighbors drive through the Ritters' property, and that road dissects their property. Jump to the next screen. So they've been there 6 years. The dock system was built 25 to 30 years ago. You can see it in the picture. It's aging, and it absolutely needs to be replaced. Also interesting, you can see that their deck chairs are piled up there. There's life jackets, there's canoes, there's everything else on the dock system because the shoreline is actually fairly steep. That's going to come up later. What they do need down by the waterfront is storage. So they retained me. We looked at replacing the dock. So they've got a dock design, and then they said, hey, boathouses are allowed on Otter Lake. Let's look at the boathouse. So there's concept plans for a boathouse as well. And there's an architectural draftsperson has done the concept plans for there. We included an aerial shot from last winter. You can see the spray paint on the ice, kind of shows the outline where it would go. So essentially the same 23 meters of shoreline that's being accessed for the docking system today is going to be retained for the boathouse. So it's a remove and replace scenario more than anything. So just show you a little bit about concept plans. Of course, there's docking. There's 2 slips, and the Ritters have 2 boats, so they'll go in the slips in the winter and go up on harnesses, which is awesome. They don't have easy access to a marina or a boat launch where they are. And then there's a sun deck for sunning. The area of the boathouse, and this is again concept plans, 11 meters by 11 meters, and that's the zoning limitation there. The height is 21 foot 9 inches. That's again meets the zoning limitations, and the dock area meets the zoning limitations. It's interesting to look at the picture on the right. It shows a series of stairs that go from the water level deck up to a second level. What we'll do is we'll connect that second level to the shoreline. Because that shoreline is fairly steep, we'll be able to eliminate 2 sets of staircases that are currently on the shoreline. There's approximately 34 stairs from the cottage down to the shore, plus a couple of ramps. We think about 7 meters vertical elevation. So the second story is actually pretty functional in accessing the waterfront for the Ritters. Here's a view of the site plan. It was in the package. This is something I put together. We're 50 meters from the one lot line. You can see the rest of it, but the boathouse itself is in a bit of a natural crescent bay, and it keeps it out of marine traffic. The other thing we're going to do, we chose a construction technique using something called helical piles, and they get drilled into the bottom of the lake. They have a very low impact on the lake bottom. So I'm a structural engineer and I've done these before. We've got 42 piles, 4-inch diameter piles. And when you do the math, it comes at 14.6 square feet. A crib dock, 4x4 crib dock, is 16 square feet in the water, and crib docks are allowed. And you'd have multiple cribs. The current dock actually has 6 cribs. So you can see that there's not a lot of bottom impact when you use the helical pier construction method. Here's just a picture of the helical pier for those that don't know what they look like. There's a screw on the bottom. It's a hollow, thick wall tube. It's galvanized, so the hot dip galvanizing makes it chemically inert. They are stable in winter and summer. And actually, our preference is to install them in the winter. So we would, like you can see on the right, it's a project that I was working on. We simply use a chainsaw, cut through the ice, drill them in the bottom with the fairly small excavator type machine, a walk behind excavator. So no waste, nothing falling in the water, easy to clean up. The sites get cleaned up every night. We can build with minimal impact. Once the helical piles are in, we would build a galvanized steel structure above it. And then once the steel structure is there, then we would use conventional building techniques to build the dock and the boathouse. So we had, with our concept plans in hand and our feasibility for the foundation, helical pile foundation, we looked at the planning process. Our first step was to call the counselor, so Mario Bazinski. We had a conference call with him, and he was able to coach us on the process and so some of the barriers that we would see, and certainly called out the fact that that area is zoned as environmental protection. So we noted that, certainly. We planned our pre-consultation with Seguin staff. I wrote a briefing document, which ended up being distributed to many of you, I think. And so then had a couple of correspondence with Taylor LG. One of the things the township required was a fish habitat assessment that they directed. So the Ritters funded that. And it's been completed with no concerns. That was Riverbank. I should remember these things. The other one we went to is Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and I sent them the outline and the briefing document, and their fish habitat service did the review, and again found that there was no concerns. They did give us some guidance on best construction techniques, so which we'll follow. There's been questions about M&R lease, but honestly, the Ritters are not intending to build guest cabin or living space above the boathouse. They would love to have it open to build living space sometime in the future. But at this time, if we're not applying for living space, we don't have to go to the M&R to look for a land use permit. The one thing that is the pivotal here is that we need a zoning bylaw amendment to allow for the 1.5 story building. So that's why we're here today. So the zoning bylaw application, as you know, there's 4 sort of variables where we need to get relief from the zoning bylaw. And again, that's why we're here today. The EP designation, I think we've done the required investigation there. We've gone to the people with the authority to make those decisions, briefed them accurately, and they've given us the green light with no concerns. 1.5 story structures, I'm going to talk to that in a second. The abilities to create 2 guest cabins. The plans are not to have a second guest cabin up here today. In the future, if that happens, maybe the back half of the property gets severed. Taylor LG actually referenced a clause in the official plan that says if the property is there that would support 2 guest cabins, that 2 guest cabins are technically possible. So maybe that's the way it goes, or maybe the other guest cabin just gets turned into a garage and a workshop. That's probably 6 to 8 to 10 years out when the kids take over the property, which we hope maybe takes much longer than that, actually. So, but nevertheless, we were advised by staff to make sure that the 2 guest cabin and the living accommodation above the boathouse was in the application. It was simpler, more straightforward to do it this way. So that's why we're there. So back in June, when we did a little reconnaissance of what's the standard boathouse in the area look like, we did a tour, and these boathouses, 6 boathouses, are all within 5 minutes of the Ritter's property. And you can see all 6 of them actually have a second story and living accommodation above them. And clearly the historic best practice was to allow these 1.5/2-story buildings. The ones, the 3 across the bottoms, we actually had permission to get out and measure them, so we did. So can confirm they're roughly the same height as the one that the Ritters are proposing in the zoning bylaw amendment. I also looked in the zoning bylaw, and I found 5 zoning bylaw amendments allowing 1.5-story buildings that had come to council and been passed between 2006 2012. I don't have access to newer ones than that. So it does seem like the historic best practice or historic practice has been to allow these. There's zoning bylaw amendments that allow these, and the Ritters would just essentially like to do the same. As far as construction comes, if we're successful, you can see their shoreline has not been improved or unimproved, let's say. They've all the trees, all the rocks, everything is undisturbed. They want to leave it that way. That's the way they love it. They love nature. So we've got the guidelines for waterfront design from Seguin, which we've built into our plan. GFO gave us measures. They like the winter construction because very little impact to in the water. Preservation, removal of trees, no trees will be removed. And my feeling, being sort of an old farm guy, grew up on the farm like the Ritters, we just did the briefing document. The Ritters went and talked to each of the immediate 3 neighbors that are on the prior lane, and all of them provided letters of support. So the neighbors are okay with the plan and have put that in writing, and that was in the package. So, kind of in summary, we're looking for the classic Muskoka boathouse. We think it's going to enhance the vista. We think it's the kind of place that people will bring their family by and say, oh, look at that boathouse. Isn't that spectacular? The Ritters are in an area of lower density. They're all 100-meter frontage lots. So we don't think the density is quite as concerned as some of the other ones where we see 70 and 50 and even 30-meter lots. And we're consistent with the existing boathouses. In fact, the boathouse that you see in that picture is one that's already constructed. That's an existing boathouse that one of the neighbors have. And it almost exactly mirrors the concept plans that the Ritters have. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you for listening. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions? Councillor Adams.
Sorry. One question I do have is the other 6 boathouses you're talking about, do they have guest cabins? Because according to the bylaws, only 1 cabin is allowed per lot. And also Otter Lake is not listed as a lake permitted to have 1.5-story boathouses. Plus it's oversized guest cabin in an EP zone. Like it's in the environment protected zone.
So I guess the question is, are there living quarters above the 6 boathouses that you showed us?
Clearly from the photos there are. What we weren't able to do, we didn't want to land on their property and do a site assessment, but do they also have a bunkie plus the living quarters above the boathouse? I suspect a couple of them do, but we can't confirm that in any way. The 6 definitely have living quarters.
Thank you. Councillor Bazinski.
Thank you. There are a number of issues with this application. The zoning bylaw makes it very clear what lakes are allowed to have more than a one-story boathouse, and Otter Lake isn't one of them. I'm not sure how the boathouses that you've mentioned have managed to get living quarters above, and if they in fact do, I'm sure they're not legal. So if we were to allow a 1.5-story boathouse with the potential of living quarters in the future, this would create a precedent on our lakes, and the zoning bylaw is very strong on that. And there's a history to 1.5-story boathouses, as a number of councillors here, I'm sure, are painfully aware, especially down on the Muskoka Lakes. So I would not be able to support a 1.5-story boathouse. Secondly, I've been in discussion with the Otter Lake Ratepayers Association and Mr. Brian Hindley, who's an aquatic biologist with over 40 years experience. And he kind of enforces my thinking that in the area around the boathouse, you could have bass spawning there. And if you had spawning habitat, it would be a type 1 fish habitat. I'm not an aquatic biologist, so I can't really say anything about it. However, I think with that being put forward, I think some more work would have to be done on whether or not it is an EP zone or not. So today, I don't think we could say that it isn't an EP zone, but it may well be, according to this one professional biologist. So I think we would need more information to be able to make that decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Vinson.
What I would like to say is that having living quarters on the half-story would have to be in writing, not allowed. And if it goes there and we see it there, then somebody will go and you will have to take it down, because it's not allowed on the lake, according to the bylaw, to have living quarters above on Otter Lake. And it's because Otter Lake is a small lake, and it's not, the Muskoka average. So Muskoka average is on Lake Rosso, that's a really big lake. So you see boathouses like that on Lake Rosso, that's still too big, but it probably makes a little more sense. So that's all I have to say. If it does come to voting for, it would have to be absolutely written that there will be no living quarters above on that half-story. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a couple councillors online. Do you have any questions? Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that in looking at the pictures of, what's already there, there's 3 or 4 of them that are obviously old enough that they're probably in a legal non-conforming status before the zoning bylaw was passed. A little bit perplexed about the last one. It seems to be newer, but not really sure whether it's the roof line on it is high enough to permit a habitable space as per the building code. So I'm in agreement with the other councillors that the rules were enacted way back when, and specified what lakes could or could not have a boathouse, and what lakes could or could not have a 1.5-story boathouse with habitable space. So I would have to be in agreement that I wouldn't support that. I think my position with regards to whether in fact it's an EP zone or an EP1 or an EP2, you have a report that substantiates that would be permissible to build a dwelling there. My suggestion would be if there's another body that has an opinion that contravenes that, they should commission a report of their own and submit it. But so I don't particularly have a problem with that part of it, but I do have a problem with The rules are the rules, and I don't really see where I'd be in the position to support an application to set a precedent like this on this lake. I don't feel it would be particularly fair. Thank you. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Getty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to echo Councillor Fellner's concerns as well. The properties that are on there that have those boathouses may very well be legal non-conforming. And the one obviously, does look more modern. It may very well have been legal non-conforming and had the opportunity to rebuild it. But without any historical knowledge on it, I also cannot support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this issue is for consultation. I do want to note that there are 6 letters opposing this application. So I think it's important, Mr. Billings, that you and your clients take a look at whether you can modify the request to conform with the zoning bylaw before it comes back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just respond to one of the concerns?
Sure.
Councillor Bazinski referenced the Brian Hindley report, which I read. The main basis in his report is he's disputing the classification of the property as type 2 fish habitat. But Riverstone Environmental came and did the site assessments, did their work, did their assessments, classified it as type 2, and also Department of Fisheries and Oceans, who use the scientifically evidence-based models to do that, so they have authority, and they also classified as type 2. So I don't think there's much of a Mr. Brzezinski, confirmed that, or one of the other councillors confirmed that we do have people in authority who have done the actual on-site assessments and come up with type 2. So I just want to reinforce that we're moving forward on that basis, that it is type 2 fish habitat, and by that, with that in place, we should be able to move forward with a structure, 1.5 story or 1 story. That's, I think, the key point here. So thank you.
Thank you. You are quite aware of the zoning bylaw, which prevents 1.5 stories on Otter Lake, and the ones that you showed pictures of were probably built before the zoning bylaw was put in, and the zoning bylaws have rationale for why they are on each size of lake. So thank you very much for your presentation. Council will now close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting. So I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. The consent application B 2023-0024 and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0029 for Vakilic, and zoning bylaw application amendment application R 2023-0023-F for Ritter. Can I have a motion to close the public meeting? Thank you, Ken and Mario. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah, this is the first one. We have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2023-0024-F for Vakilic, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion to this effect? Terry and Mary? All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed. Oh, and this is another piece of the Vakilic motion that bylaw number 2024-014, being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-010-01100, application number R 2023-0029-F for Vakilic, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion? Councillor Finson. And seconded, Councillor Adams. All in favor? Thank you. And that is carried. We have a delegation, right? We move now to a delegation of Mr. Bruce Mills from Burgess Road Property Owners. Is he here? Could you? Okay. Mr. Sully, could you identify yourself and your address for the clerk? But you have to speak, you must have the little light on. And
it's Ken Sully, and I'm at 107 Burgess Road. Oh boy. I don't think we need this. Can I proceed? Yeah, thank you.
you have the floor.
Thanks very much for hearing us on this matter. We're here to talk about the Rosso Dyson Lake portage, and we should probably call it a historic portage. And I'm here with folks that also live on Burgess Road, and that's Bruce Mills, Phil Putty, and Tim Schmutz. And what's interesting to note here is that Bruce Mills, his grandfather, used that portage. His father used the portage. He uses it, and his son uses it. So we've got 4 generations. And the reason why I state that is because I want to put it in perspective of how important this little small piece of property is to the community, right? The portage actually dates back 120 years. And I just want to read a couple of lines in case everybody never got the package. But basically, the available historical information on the portage dates back over 120 years. It's found in the publication Muskoka Country, published in the late 1800s. It describes Morgan Bay as one of the most important fishing grounds, studded with islands and shores recessed by deep bays. From South Bay, which is Bass Bay, a 100-yard portage leads to Dyson Lake. The north end of Lake Rosso was a popular tourist destination from 1900 to 1930, with Monteith House, Rosemoyne, Maplehurst, and a number of other smaller hotels serving the large tourist trade. It was a common practice in those days for the hotels to organize picnics and fishing trips for their guests. A frequent destination was Dyson Lake, which at that time was called Bass Lake. So, in 1947, the portage was actually donated by Mrs. Burgess to the, I guess it was called the Township of Humphrey at the time. And I'm assuming that like a payment of $1 would be a donation. And it was used for 120 years without complaints, as far as we all know. Except in May, we had a complaint. And this all kind of arose from the purchase of a property that was adjacent to the portage. And there was a small issue with somebody blocking it and basically saying that they owned it. And that's what was reported to myself anyways. So today, our objective really is to gain assurance that the public access to the Lake Rosso and from Lake Rosso up to Burgess Road will be maintained and continue to be available to the public. So that's why we're here. And I'm wondering if we should be going through our list of questions, which we have 8. If that's a good forum.
Yeah, we have your full presentation in our agenda package, and we have your 8 questions.
Okay.
Our CAO, Jason, will give you a little bit of background. This is not new to us.
Thank you, Worship. And certainly we have the package. We have your list of questions. We will we'll circle back with you after the meeting and provide responses to those that we can. Clearly, with respect to some of the questions around fines issued and et cetera, we won't be getting into the legalities of what may or may not have occurred, but we'll certainly respond to you in regards to your questions, and include assurance that it'll be restored and it'll be kept in the state that it's been historically in for generations to come.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing it to our attention. We knew about it in May, and not everything's has happened the way it was supposed to, but we understand the importance of historical portages. And there are other places in the township where you may have seen signs that maintain the portage delegation. So we're working on it. Thank you very much for taking the time to make a delegation. So we move on now to staff reports. And I believe, I have to do this first. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for February 5th, 2024 meeting of council. Could I have a motion? Mario and Ken. All in favor of receiving staff reports? And I believe Michelle is up first with a report on donations.
Yes, I am. Thank you. We received our annual donation requests by December 1st. They're summarized here in the report. There are a few that are new. Staff have made some recommendations regarding what we believe would be an appropriate amount to be donated to each of these groups.
Council, you have the very specific recommendations on page 184 of your agenda package, comparing it to last year and this year. So we have a question from Councillor Bazinski.
Yes, I was just wondering if there's any recognition to the Biosphere Reserve and the Muskoka Watershed Council.
Those contributions have been are done separately. This is strictly for the $30,000 donation line. The watershed, I believe, was given $2,000 directly by council, and that's already gone out. And the Biosphere, we participate in Ice Cap, and that's again in a different budget line.
Thank you. These ones are ones where we get a written request each year by December 1st. Some of them are very historic, and we've been given to them for years. I do draw your attention to the fact that our maximum is $3,000 per, excuse me, per organization. So even if they ask for more, their max is $3,000. Yes, Councillor Adams.
The chamber music, what's that one?
That's Whispering River.
Yeah, and it's organized by Brenda Mueller. They do children's string, I believe, string and percussion teaching and concerts as well. And I think they have adults as well, but it's part of the arts.
Is that the group that works out of Foley?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle, pardon me, I can't seem to minimize the screen and get back to my council thing. They've updated my Zoom. It's a little bit different now, but somewhere in that request is the Sunday night hockey, which is at our arena, is it not? Now, is that a cash donation or is that rentals in lieu of cash, or how do we historically?
Historically, we've put a credit on their account, and then we apply their rentals against the credit.
Right, and then how long has it been? I see they've asked for an increase this year, but it's not being recommended. But how long has we been donating the current? I think it was 2,000, was it not?
For Sunday night hockey, I don't have the file here in front of me, but they've been operating a few years, and I believe we have given them a contribution every year except for their very first year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really important program in the township, and it's really done a lot of good for the youth. Gives them an opportunity to try hockey and that I would suggest to my fellow councilors that maybe we could consider giving them the additional $500. That would be my only I'm fine with everything else. That was the only thing that came to my mind.
I can vouch for the fact that they're at least 4 or 5 years into this, because my husband and I come and tie skates on little people on Sunday nights. It is an incredible program, free equipment, free training, free everything. Now they requested $3,500. We gave them $3,000, which is our stated maximum. So I think we should need to stay at the maximum unless we change that maximum for everyone.
Oh, okay.
But it's an incredible program. If anybody wants to tie up skates, they always need adults doing skates up on Sunday night. Any other comments or questions from council? I think you've done a very thorough recommendation. And I'm prepared to, can I move it? I'll make the motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the following 2024 donations. The 295 McPherson Cadets, $1,000. Rosso Historic Horticultural Society, $3,000. Perry Sound EMS Toy Drive, $1,000. Artelina Chamber Music, $3,000. Safe Quiet Lakes, $2,000. Sunday Night Hockey, $3,000. Perry Sound High School and Intermediate School, this is a scholarship, $500. The Humphrey Soccer League, $500. The Georgian Jumpers, $1,300. And Georgian Nordic, $2,500. So I will make the motion. Could I have a seconder? Mario. And all in favor? Thank you. And that's carried. Thanks, Michelle, for going through it in such detail. I think we're calling on Dominique here. Oh, sorry. Okay. Our CAO would like to introduce this, which is the discussion about the Rosso Memorial Hall Master Plan.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Before I turn it over to Dominique, I first wanted to thank her and the team from ERA for the extensive work put into this master planning exercise. I had the opportunity to speak with Councillor Collins actually prior to the weekend, and unfortunately he's not here today, but he'd raised some concern around implementation of the plan and what the financial impacts may or may not be as we move into the future with this project. I just wanted to state prior to the team taking over here from me that what you're endorsing or what you're considering endorsing this evening or this afternoon is a vision document. It by no means endorses any financial spends. All of that comes back to council during the budgeting process or through requests of staff through staff reports. But what you do see here is the long-term vision, some phasing, some opportunities for council to consider. But again, none of that is being approved in this process. That comes back through a formal implementation plan that Dominique and her team will bring forward to council at the time. So I just wanted to put that on the table, and then I'll quickly hand it over to Dominique and let her carry on from here.
Okay, thank you. And I see some of our architectural consultants there. I do want to say that the public consultation on this was extensive and repetitive for those of us that attended many of the sessions. So again, it's a what can be document, and I'll turn it over to you. I still badly want to see community involvement from a point of view of real specifics. You know, what does a kitchen look like if we have a kitchen? Where's the fire hall go? All of those things have not really been decided. This is setting the stage with data and documentation. And now we need real details in how it could be implemented and how much it will cost and where the dollars will come from. So over to you, Dominique, and your team.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say that this final master plan is here before you today. It has not changed since I brought it to the November 20th council meeting. I haven't had any feedback from council or from any of the stakeholder group since then. So you're seeing the same document, and it is now finalized and ready for council adoption. So the team from ERA is here, as you can see, and they're here to answer any questions from council. So I'll hand it back over to you.
I think before we have questions, I goofed. I was supposed to put the motion on the table first. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the Culture Resource Strategy Master Plan for the Rosso Memorial Community Hall attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Could I have a motion, Councillor Finson? And seconder, Can? Okay. Oh, any questions from council? Councillor Bazinski.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to state that I'm really appreciative of Dominique giving us ample time to review the document. I hate getting a council package on Thursday night and it's 500 pages long and some serious reports, and trying to spoil my weekend isn't a good thing. So thank you very much, Dominique, for that. Secondly, I think the report was well done. I don't have any questions or concerns about a strategy or a vision type report of this nature. But what I talked to our clerk about it, and I question the words approval and adopt. Could we not receive these types of reports to council for information? Because, you know, I have some concerns over some of the other reports that have been done, as do staff. I know, for instance, with the waste management report, it was a good report, but I have some concerns, and I believe that our Director of Public Works has. So by saying adopt, it to me means, yeah, you approve it and move forward with it, unless somebody can correct me. So I would, I'd rather see it just say received for information, because as is true, I think that the report at the various different stages will go through a lot of council review and questioning and so on. So I just, by saying approve and adopt, to me, that means go to it. That was my comment.
Thank you. Councillor Finson.
I have a different view of that. I think that what we're approving is the vision. We're not approving the document. Everything has to come back to council. We're approving the vision that's been put forward by the company that we hired to put the vision forward. So the vision has been out there. It's not a new document. We had the document in November. We had the document before November. We had the document way back a whole year ago. So this document is not new. It hasn't changed since November. So there's nothing new in it. And it's a vision. It's a vision document. It's a document that we're saying, this is a vision. Let's see what we can do about making it happen. There'll be a lot of fundraising. There'll be a lot of committees going forward. Everything will come back to council. So I believe we should adopt it as our vision for the community hall, because that's what we worked on for the last 2 years, is making a vision. And now we want to say, this is a really nice vision, which is obviously a very nice vision. Everybody is okay with it. Nobody's put in, they want something changed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Fellner, is that a hand up?
I was looking around for the yellow one, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, no, I think I tend to agree with Gail. I mean, I think, and Mayor, to your point, I think it's critical at this point that, you know, we've gone this far through this hard work and excellent work. By the way, where we have a vision now, and this is what we think it could be. And now we need the public, the people from Rosso and surrounding, to to organize themselves and tell us whether this is, you know, really what's needed, you know, and to the mayor's point, like how big the kitchen should be, what kind of a venue are we looking at, how many seats do we need, yada, all the detailed stuff, because the danger is you go too far with one of these things and you leave out that sort of thing, you know, then at the last minute, everybody says, well, why didn't we do this? And why didn't we do that? And why didn't we do the other thing? And I don't want to see it go there. I think there's a lot of moving pieces here. There's the fire hall issue. There's a lot of different things that need to get solved. And I think we need a, you know, need a committee. We need a committee to quarterback this thing. And so as far as approving the vision, I don't have a problem with approving the vision. But to me, that's all it is at this moment, is a vision. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think what we're doing is adopting it from the consultants and letting it move now into the community hands. I don't want to point a finger, but Councillor Finson is closest to the hall, so she's going to need to light a bit of a fire under some parts of the committee or the community to see what the details are. Councillor Adams.
I agree with the vision too. There is a few changes that I would like to see in it down the road, but I do agree with the vision and what they've set forth. But like I say, there is a couple of things I would like to see change if possible.
Thank you. And I guess, for instance, what would be the terms of reference for an architect? We don't know that. Would it be for pickleball? Would it be for weddings? Would it be for a daycare? Would it be for a teenage drop-in? None of that's been determined yet. So this is just what could be. And Terry raised the issue of what's going to happen to the fire hall. That's a big issue. Last meeting, we talked about possibly buying some land, moving a fire hall. So there's still lots of work to be done, but I'd like to thank everybody, ERA and the community that came out to many of the visioning sessions and made dinners, potluck dinners, all of them, for getting us this far. So we have a motion on the table to adopt it as a vision document. Oh, Councillor Bazinski?
Sorry, I just want to, not to belabor the point, but I do, since, you know, the final phase of the hall, I think the consultants projected it to be about 5 million. And if you include the moving of the fire hall and all the other things, plus inflation, it could be significantly more. So I'm quite happy up until that last phase. The last phase to me is a little more problematic because of the amount of funding that would be required. So provided we're talking about a vision and what we'd like to, you know, it'd be wonderful to achieve it. But we also have financial realities that we have to look at. So to me, I'm totally happy up to the last phase, and then it's a question of show me, I guess. I'm from Missouri or wherever that was from. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We got a lot of work to do before we spend any money. So we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Thank you. And that's carried. And a very special thank you to ERA Associates. You did some outstanding community consultation. It was fun. We had all ages at them, and we'll keep you posted on where we're headed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you.
I have a motion, bylaw number 2024-008, being a bylaw to deed lots 4 and 5 of Main Street and E of Lot A on Plan 82, pursuant to Section 50(4) of the Planning Act, not to be on a plan of subdivision. Property rolls number 4903-040-008-1 -02400 and 4903 Shoot. Sorry. I guess I have to start again. Sorry, everybody. I didn't push my button. Sorry. And this is a long one. My apologies. I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-008, being a bylaw to deem lots 4 and 5 of Main Street and E of Lot A on Plan 82 pursuant to Section 50(4) of the Planning Act, not to be on a plan of subdivision, property roll numbers 4903-040-008-02400 and 4903-040-008-02500, file number D 2023-0013C for Den Boer, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from someone? Councillor Finson and Councillor Adams. Taylor, want to speak to this at all?
Through your worship, this is just a standard deeming bylaw application, which will essentially allow the lots to merge for planning purposes and become one larger lot.
Does council have any questions? Nope. All in favor? Thank you. Oh, yeah. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application numbers B 2023-0012-F and B 2023-0019F for McCabe, subject to the conditions set out in the decisions. Could I have a motion to this effect? Terry Fellner and a seconder. Finson. And I believe Mr. Jackson and Brady are both here to speak to this. Brady, do you want to go first?
Yes. So this application was previously brought to a public meeting back in November. The purpose is to create one new waterfront lot on Murdoch Lake and to grant a right-of-way over an existing driveway on the severed lands to benefit the retained lands. We have incorporated a condition of approval to require the preparation of a water quality impact study for any future additions to the septic systems on the subject lands. I am here to answer any further questions that council may have.
Mr. Jackson, do you have anything to add? Does council have any questions? Councillor Bazinski.
Just a comment, and that is dealing with overcapacity lakes under 40 hectares in size. The official plan right now allows for it. It's not consistent with lake planning policy or good lake planning, and I'm just voicing a concern that should we have had our official plan reviewed, and this would have been put in because all the major lake associations were in support of not allowing development on overcapacity lakes under 40 hectares. So that's just my comment, but as it stands right now, the official plan permits it, so I can't oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you. That is carried. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. I'll do one at a time. a motion that bylaw number 2024-015, being a bylaw to regulate the use of township docks and boat launches, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion? Councillor Adams and Brzezinski. And I see probably both Rory and Dominique might have something to add here. Dominique, do you want to go first?
Sorry, I'll let Rory introduce these bylaws, and I'm here to answer any specific questions as well.
Okay, the first one we're talking about is docks and boat launches. Rory?
Through your worship. So today I'll present a recommendation from staff concerning township parks, docks, and boat launches. Of course, I'll start with docks and boat launches. So focusing on the township dock and boat launch bylaw for a moment. So this bylaw focuses on regulations revolving around boat mooring and loading, unloading provisions at public docks and ramps. Of note, the current bylaw lacks authority to restrain and or tow a violating boat, which creates an enforcement gap, especially when the boat owner cannot be identified. This is because up-to-date vessel registration is not currently a provincial requirement, and therefore searches at times lead back to previous owners, which can cause a bit of a difficulty to pinpoint the current owner and resolve the violations efficiently. The new bylaw contains such provisions. Notably, many neighboring municipalities currently follow this practice of restraining and or towing a violating boat, including but not limited to Orillia, Gravenhurst, Muskoka Lakes, and Perry Sound, just to name a few. While staff are compliance-driven first, bylaw officers need the tools to do the job successfully for the community and for the equitable use of our docks. The bylaw also has new provisions on the loading and unloading of materials on docks and ramps to safeguard efficient use by visitors. The last comment I'll say is that if a permit is required to moor a boat overnight or longer than allowed or beyond the confines of the bylaw's provisions, a permit may be requested through community services through Dominique O'Brien.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for either Rory or Dominique? This has been hard to enforce over the last few years. Councillor Adams.
Rory, is this going to accommodate contractors that are putting in septic beds and stuff like that with a permit? You're going to have a permit for them to do the work?
Through you, your worship. So essentially, if a contractor or any person for that matter is coming and loading and moving on, that's the whole reason why we have docks and boat launches. So it would not be hindering that ability. Now, if someone's using it for commercial uses, staff feel that it is beneficial that a permit be obtained to make sure that it's not hindering the ability for the other public users to use these spaces. This isn't a money grab. This is more so to do with making sure that the work that's being conducted is, one, done in a safe manner, and two, it's not hindering or obstructing the ability for other users to also enjoy the docks and boat launches. As far as
Go ahead.
Sorry, as far as contractors are concerned, as far as, let's say, loading materials, if they wanted to store materials as a staging area, I remember we talked about this the last council meeting on this topic, they would be able to get a permit for the storing of fill or other construction materials on a park space by obtaining a permit through our park and open space bylaw, which is also up for recommendation today. So no, it does not hinder the ability for contractors to do their work.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner, you're next. I think you're muted.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mayor. No, thank you, Roy. I've got some concerns with this. I would have liked to, quite frankly, have seen it a bit sooner than I did. In that I think there's a bit of a miss here in my mind because we have some facilities that fall in line with what the conventional thinking for a boat launch in a park is. But primarily a lot of the access points on some of these lakes are unapproved. The boat launches per se are not engineered boat launches. They're just beaches that people are allowed to launch on. They're unapproved properties in that we haven't planted grass and we haven't spent a lot of money with the parking. Two or three of them in particular come into mind that every time we get a big rain, a good part of the parking lot ends up in the lake. And to me, I think you're going to have to differentiate between what you want to enforce in a facility like Rosso, right? And what you're going to do in some remote lake access in the middle of nowhere. And to me, lumping them all together is going to cause difficulties like we experienced last year, where the expectations of the local contractors are perhaps a little bit different than our bylaw department. I can see in my own mind going through with this the way that it's laid out now without a tremendous amount of signage at every location that you intended to enforce these bylaws at, we would be in a huge jackpot in my mind. So I would like to see this go back and give some more thought into separating out the different types of, in quote, boat launches, open spaces, parks, because the municipalities compared to are primarily far more facilities far more along the lines of what we have in Rosso, not what is sitting out on the end of Otter Lake somewhere or down on some other small inland lake. So for me right now, I can't support this. So,
Councillor Bazinski.
I was going to say it's a good first start at it, Rory, and I would share the concern that it's hard to treat all the access points in the same manner. I think if you have municipal docks and infrastructure, and I'll use the Otter Lake example because that's where I'm from. You have Foley Matheson Park where there is a dock and people can access it from the lake and so on. That is, to me, totally different than Otter Lake Marina, where the municipality also has a dock and boat launch there. And again, it's totally different than the Long Arm access point where all there is a sandy beach, no dock, no municipal facilities down at the water's edge. And you're doing a good job of trying to address the problem. So I'm confident that you'll be able to do that. I just want to be sure that our contractors in the area have an easy go at servicing our water access properties, because the Otter Lake has so many water access, and I know that one contractor has at least 2 septic systems he wants to put in, and this spring, and it's critical that we get the septic systems in. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty negative impact on the lake if you're just using a pit privy. If there's any way to make it a little simpler, or at least, put out a paper to the contractors that say, okay, if you want to do, a septic where you've got material, you've got to offload and then unload onto a barge, and you've got one day it happens to be a very heavy wind or a rainstorm, and you've got to stop work, and we discussed this a little bit. So I'm not, I'm confident that maybe with a little more fine tuning, or at least a communications program for the local contractors to make it easy. What do I have to do? Okay, is there one permit I have to get? Is there two permits? Do these things cost money? Or, that type of thing for me, it's very important for my constituents that they can have these contractors not walk away because it's too difficult to get them to work. And I think that what you've done so far is a really good first step, and maybe with a little fine tuning, is it possible, do you think?
I'm going to ask our CAO to address this.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think what, I don't mean to get ahead of any other members of council who may want to speak here, but what I'm hearing is there's some tweaks within the bylaw that you'd like to see. So we're happy if you would like to defer this, and we'll go ahead and have another look at it and take into consideration some of the thoughts and perhaps some follow-up calls. And to Councillor Bazinski's point, a communication strategy on how this will be implemented is something that we're happy to do. We need the bylaw to be passed first, though, so we need to make sure we get the bylaw right. So, again, I don't mean to get ahead of any members of council here, but if you're leaning towards a deferral, we're happy to take that feedback, and any follow-up conversations that need to take place to ensure we get it to your satisfaction.
What I'm going to suggest is that Schedule B, which lists all of these locations, maybe becomes two schedules, ones that have docks and swing sets and everything, and others that just happen to be sandy ramps into boat. That maybe that's all that needs to happen, is to split the kinds of launches differently, and then a brief, maybe a sample of what a sign would look like at each of these places. And, are we going to write to each contractor? I don't know. But yes, if we're changing the rules, we need to tell them how we're changing the rules so they don't get fined before they know what we're doing. So I would suggest that instead of passing it or rewriting it here, we defer for, I don't know, a month?
We'll
I see Dominique has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think for the most part, we do get contractors calling us. I think this bylaw will just make it easier for them in a way to let us know what they're doing. And I think that's sort of the main intent. We don't want to charge a fee for a permit. We want to make it as easy as possible through our website, or you phone and we process that through, but there would be no charge. But I agree, if we need more time, we can do those updates for you and bring it back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I don't want the conversation necessarily to be focused on a communication strategy after the fact. We have to get the bylaw right first. We will endeavor to bring it back to you at the next meeting in council, given that we're only meeting monthly at this point in time. I don't necessarily want to commit our staff without having consultation on their current workloads before I make that commitment, but we'll endeavor to bring it back. We certainly want this done long before we get into spring, so that's why we'll try and prioritize and make sure we get this back as soon as possible.
So we have a motion on the table. Sorry, we have a motion on the table. And I'm going to ask for a show of hands that are prepared to defer this. Okay, so it is deferred, and hopefully we'll see it in a month.
You just should have someone moving to defer it and then a seconder and vote on it. Okay.
I'll move to defer it.
Okay, so deferral, hang on. So Councillor Fellner moves to defer, and who was the seconder? Mario? Okay. And all in favor of a deferral. Thank you. Thank you, Craig. I now have a motion that bylaw number 2024-016 being a bylaw to regulate and govern the use of land and activities permitted within township parks and open space, and to repeal bylaw number 2005-053 and all of its amending bylaws in their entirety, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time by council. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Gail? And a seconder. Ken? And I think it's over to you, Rory, again, you and Dominique, to take us through this.
Please, through you, Madam Chair. The first point I would bring up is that our current regulation, our current parks bylaw contains both general park use provisions, but it also contains mooring and docking related provisions. And for that reason, if I'm going to be bringing back the dock related bylaw at a later date, I would ask for a deferral on this. The reason being is if we move forward and this bylaw were to get passed and the previous bylaw were to be repealed, we would be without mooring regulations until a new bylaw is brought forward. Nevertheless, I'll go over a couple high-level bullet points on this bylaw and we'll go from there. So much of the provisions still hold true to the current bylaw, but they have been updated to today's standards, revolving around a myriad of topics. So similarly, a permit can be requested through community services for items like special events, dumping or storing of fill and construction materials, overnight vehicle parking, and a number of other things. The park bylaw deals with anything from, releasing balloons within a park to maximum speeds, park hours, operating any vehicle off of parked roads or parking spaces. So there's quite a wide array of provisions within a park bylaw, as you commonly see in a bylaw of this nature. Not much has changed other than a bit of a delegated authority to Dominique, who would be the individual who'd be assessing and approving permits. But that's pretty much it. So I'm open and available to any questions you may have.
Can I ask that the movers, Gail, and seconders can be the movers and seconders to defer it with the other one? You're comfortable with that? Do you have any questions or input for Rory and Dominique before they go back for a deferral? Councillor Adams.
The one I got is concerned about is the one on Clear Lake. What is it called? Coburn? The boat launch or the beach on Clear Lake Road. It's a boat launch too. Now, how do you distinguish? Like they can put their boats in and they also have a beach there. There's no real green space, and it happens. It's happening all the time there. Like how you can distinguish that one?
You can answer that one.
I don't want to get ahead of Rory here, but I'll just suggest that I think with the boat launch discussion, with this discussion, there perhaps needs to be some classifications developed.
Yeah.
With some definitions associated with them. So I think with the deferral, if you're comfortable with that, we'll explore that and bring that back. Perhaps Rory wants to add on to that.
Yeah, the only comments I would say is that, signs make things very clear. And so if there's certain areas that we don't want boat launching to occur, it's not 1,000 signs, it's one sign. It gets the point across, and there would be a prohibition in place for that. But as part of Jason's comments on classifications, not only can we classify whether or not it's a dock or a boat launch, or whether you can do contracting activities at a certain dock versus another. We could also create a classification on areas where boat launching or docking is not permitted, and then we could make it more clear that way.
Thank you. And Councillor Fellner, you had your hand up.
I did marry them. I took it down after CAA Inwood sort of clarifying something I was going to say, but then Rory sort of brought up something that was out. I think, Rory, if you start looking in a little further, the beach on the Clear Lake Road going into Lake Joseph is a perfect example. Is it a park? Well, I don't know if I'd call it a park. It's pretty, there's a bit of a dock and there's some outhouses, I think. But historically, the beach has been used as a boat launch, and historically, the township's sort of maintained a boat launch there when it's washed in. At least it has for the last 50 years that I can remember. But then also people swim in it. Is it a park? In my mind, I don't think it's a park. You know, we don't really maintain it. We don't doesn't have any grass. So what is it? You know, that I think that's where you got to get down to what exactly these facilities are. It's not a Rosso, but then again, it's not a lot at the end of summer, you know, some road somewhere else. It's well used winter and summer. So there's got to be rules. So, but what are those rules? So I think that's I think that's the thing that you got to get your mind around. So thank you.
Thank you. Good luck defining. If there's swimming, is it a park? If there's no swimming, isn't it? I don't know. But we have a motion to defer. So all in favor of bringing them back together. Thank you. I think we're looking for Tom now. Oh, and Tatum? Yeah. And Tatum? You don't have to read it. Okay. I have a motion on the table that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the Township of Seguin Road Network Plan road needs attached to Schedule A to this resolution, and the Township of Seguin Road Network Plan road systems and operation attached as Schedule B to this resolution. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Adams, and a seconder from Councillor Finson. And Tom, what does adopting this mean?
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council. Big package, I understand. Taylor, Michael called online here. He's had a lot of effort into this. It's a big package. Adopting means similar to the Rosso Memorial Hall. It's a more of an eye-opening, if anything, seeing what's ahead of us for roads. There's a lot of work ahead of us, frequent calls, the warm weather coming up. It's going to be, you know, you're going to get some phone calls with some of our roads. So this is just outlining what we need to do ahead, what's ahead of us anyways, in terms of road needs and improvements and priorities. We're not adopting $5.8 million a year moving forward. This is a scope and a reality of what's ahead of us and what's a priority-based approach to all of our roads. And Michael Cullup from Tatum is here to answer any of the questions in the reports. He will know it much better than I will. I've read through it. He will have it more absorbed than I will. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I see this as a very important set of data that will inform a road strategy and budgets going forward. So I do want to say thank you for the thoroughness of the detail in this, but very much, as you suggested, I see it as a foundational data document to then make some recommendations going forward. So, Council, do you have any questions for Councillor Bazinski?
I guess in terms of the report, it's great. We have to set some priorities. And I guess the number one priority would be is if there's any natural event that washes a road out, like a beaver dam lets go and it makes a road impassable, then that's going to be the township's first priority to get the roads in operation again. And then I'd just like to hear what this isn't part of the roads needs study really, but it's what are we doing with these roads that people want us to assume? Is that incorporated into the roads needs study? Is that going to be a separate study, or how are we going to treat that, Tom?
I'm happy to bring a standalone report back on how we want to treat those private roads. There's some dollar figures attached to all that. We do have a bylaw in place with options if the residents feel the need to proceed and really want the township to assume the road. There's a criteria in there, so that's a separate report that I can bring to council. I mean, J.O. Jason Inwood can lean into that as well if that's the right approach. So I can have a whole different conversation essentially.
Yeah, and before Jason gets into it, I'm just thinking, you know, we have a number of things that are on the table now. We have Ferris Road, we have Second Line, and I'm sure there are a number of other ones. And it's going to be how are we fair to everybody, and how are we fair to our budget as well? Thank you.
I'll just piggyback on Tom's comments. You know, there is a defined process and procedure for residents requesting municipal assumption of a private road. And as Tom alluded to, we're happy to brief council on that process at a future date. For today's purposes of the roads needs study, it's a separate entity, a separate discussion in its entirety. But if it's the will of council to have a briefing on that process and procedure, let us know, and we're happy to bring something back.
Thank you. I think you're hearing that people need clarification, and I see your hand up, Councillor Fellner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to comment on the amount of work that went into this report. I think it's a very, very good report, and I think it's very comprehensive, and it's given us a lot more insight into the condition of our road infrastructure system and the actual present condition and shortcomings of it. Tremendously important document, I think, going down the road, planning for the future. So on that basis, I'm quite prepared to vote to accept it or approve it or whatever your terminology is. However, I do want to point out that it is a dated document, and you know, it will be the foundational data that you use to, Tom, to create a way forward, correct? Is my thinking correct here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought it was excellent. So again, thank you to Mr. Cullip and yourself for needless to say, a lot of hours of hard work. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
I guess too, we got to be realistic. I know it says in the report that it's a 10-year program, but it's going to take a lot longer than 10 years. It's going to take 15 to 20 years to get this completed.
With the kind of dollars that are stated in that program, of course, council's going to have to make some decisions on how much you want to allocate and when you want to allocate those dollars. Yeah. But to your point, you know, we have not been spending $6 million a year, $5.5 million a year on our roadway network, and that is a very significant shift that we're not quite prepared for just yet. So again, this plan informs, to everybody's point, this plan brings data to the table that informs the decision making and future budgets. Future capital planning.
Thank you. And thank you very much for a very comprehensive report. We have a motion on the table to adopt it. All in favor? Thank you. And that is carried. Oh, it's nice to see our reporter back. Actually, acting general manager of the paper. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the statement of the Treasurer for 2023 remuneration of elected members attached to Schedule A to this resolution, and the remuneration of appointed members attached as Schedule B to this resolution. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Basinski and Councillor Finson. And over to you, Treasurer Michelle.
Yes, this is just a housekeeping matter. We have to report these things every year. So.
Are there any questions from council? All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion on that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby support the Municipality of McDougall Resolution Number 2024-04 attached as Schedule A to this resolution regarding their support for the Near North District School Board's request to the Ministry of Education to not close the rural elementary schools within the municipality of McDougall and to establish a new accommodation review committee. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Ontario Public School Boards Association, the Honourable Stephen Lecce, Minister of Education, MPP of Parry Sound, Muskoka, Graydon Smith, and Near North District School Board, and all West Parry Sound municipalities. Could I have a motion on the table to this? Councillor Finson, and seconded by Councillor Fellner. Are there any questions? This has been an issue for many years. And although the new high school is intended to be K-12 and is under construction now, many in the community believe that the elementary school, particularly in McDougall, need to remain open. Is there any discussion? All in favor of supporting this? Thank you. That is carried. Oh my goodness. This is a biggie. I have to read it all, right? Stay with me, guys. I have a motion. Whereas the municipal public works departments from across the province of Ontario provide invaluable services to our communities, ensuring the health and safety of all residents. And whereas, if it was not for our municipal public works employees from across the province of Ontario maintaining our public road systems, our communities would not be able to function, as emergency personnel could not respond to calls, school buses could not get our children to school, residents would not be able to get to work, school or appointments, and many more basic functions would not be able to happen. And whereas municipal public works departments are already feeling the impacts of labor shortage, which will only be exacerbated over the next 3 to 5 years, which will cause levels of service municipalities are able to provide to ensure the health and safety of our residents to decrease. And whereas there is currently no provincial-wide course that properly trains potential municipal public works employees specifically relating to municipal heavy equipment. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby support the work of the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors to develop a municipal equipment operator course to address this issue. And further, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin calls on the Province of Ontario's Ministry of Labour, Training, Immigration, and Skilled Trades to fully fund the Municipal Equipment Operator course in 2024 through the Skills Development Fund. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Minister of Labour, Training, Immigration, and Skills Trades, David Piccini, Graydon Smith, MPP, Parry Sound, Muskoka, and the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors. Could I have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Adams And a seconder, Councillor Finson. Tom is here to answer any questions if council has any questions. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. The next issue is really for information. The Township of Archipelago requesting or providing support for Perry Sound's request for sanitary sewer infrastructure improvements to the tune of $10 million. I think it's just here for information. Prince Edward County, expanding the life. Okay, we have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby support Prince Edward County Resolution number 2024-46 regarding the lifespan of fire apparatus attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Can I have a motion to put this on the table? Gail? A seconder? Mario? I'm hoping Sean's here to explain this a little. He's not. Can you explain it at all?
In brief, I'll do the best I can in the absence of our fire chief. There are standardized levels of service with respect to equipment for fire services, and in some cases, all too often, fire apparatus is having to be replaced, even though it's still in good working order. So there seems to be a movement to provide some relief to the legislation that restricts or that forces municipalities to have to replenish and replace equipment that may not very well have reached the end of its useful life. I hope I got it as good as I can. I apologize, I'm not the fire chief, but doing my best here.
I'm assuming this is kind of a province-wide initiative amongst fire chiefs.
It certainly is. I know this is, you know, in places, in big urban centers where the equipment is on the move and being used routinely day in, day out, it certainly does make sense for, you know, asset replacement on a frequent cycle. But where small rural northern communities may have trucks that over a 20-year span only put 15 or 20,000 kilometers on them, to have to dispose of a perfectly good truck because it's hit a date on a calendar seems irresponsible at times. But the provincial legislation that's in place today does require that to happen. We're faced with that ourselves right now, and unfortunately we're replacing a vehicle that is no longer, or is about to become no longer viable based on current legislation. So this movement is going to happen throughout the province, and it's a request to provide relief to those to that legislation.
Thank you. Council have any questions? All in favor? Now, do we have a quorum? Yep, we do, even though. Oh, okay, so that's carried. And the next two items are for information, I believe. The Georgian Bay Biosphere Zero Emission Vehicle Workshop invitation is for, I think, the public and council. It's in the agenda package. And the Perry Sound Area Founders Circle Awards Night invitation is there for your information and attendance if you wish. And we had, excuse me, we had an addendum item from the museum to their opening. I have to get my other, but it's to their opening. I believe it's the 22nd of February. They're asking all of council to attend, and they specifically mentioned my name. I will put it on my calendar and do my best. Yeah, okay, thank you. It's the Reconnecting with the Forgotten. It's a initiative to speak to the history of the region, 6 o'clock on the 22nd of February. So again, that was really for information. Thanks. So we move on now to council reports. Gail? we'll go backwards. 6.
I dealt with some calls regarding snow, which we don't have anymore, so that's a good thing. Everything was sorted by staff, which were amazing. I had a Belvedere Heights meeting on January 22nd. It was a budget meeting. I had another meeting with Belvedere Heights on the 24th, a productive meeting. Had a rec committee meeting on the 24th as well. And turkey dinner after talk about next year meeting, which was very productive and lots of ideas for next year to make it better than it was this year, which is, I mean, almost impossible to make it better because it was fabulous. But yeah, I think that it will be better next year. Again, I had some signs down and contacted staff and they helped me out getting them back up. And other than that, I worked a little with Seniors Connect with Dawn Rouse. So she's starting a new program and she's now coming to Rosso on Mondays. So it's all going really well. And I'm really excited for all the things that they're going to be doing with Seniors Connect. Anyway, thank you.
Ward 4, Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, since our last meeting, I had a meeting of the pool board. It was a very productive meeting. The consultant at the end of last year tried to move ahead with the early works tender. Hit some wrinkles, had to reissue, and I believe that tender is closing in the early part of February with the anticipation that some site work could commence soon thereafter. There was quite a bit of discussion at the meeting about the lack of gallery or spectator seating in the facility, and it seems even to the point where it's reached the attention of the Mayor Perry Sound, who made a comment that the overwhelming opinion is we need more seating. So I believe they're working on that as things move forward. So all in all, things are starting to move along there. A few more tweaks. I had a recreation meeting as well, and I had a turkey dinner aftermath meeting as well, which was quite good. And yeah, that was my month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appear to have lost Councillor Getty, so we will move on to Ward 2.
Probably dead.
Thank you. I attended the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference in Toronto from the 21st through the 23rd, along with Ken Adams, but Ken will give you his own report. It just once again gave me an idea as to why I moved out of Toronto. Took me half an hour to go from the street into the hotel parking. Took me half an hour to get to the front desk. And it took me 3 hours to get my hotel room. But I was far better than Councillor Adams, who it took probably 6 or 7 hours. Anyway, that's an aside. The conference is an annual conference, Roma, and it talks about issues with respect to rural municipal issues and problems and so on. And it's a focus for all the political parties. So we had the Premier out, as well as most of his ministers giving talks. And there was a talk from the leader of the Green Party, a leader from the Liberal Party, and the leader of the NDP. So we got filled up with politics, and I don't want to be cynical about it, but you know, we'll wait and see. They announced a lot of different programs, and there were a number of good sessions that we went to, and about agriculture in the rural areas. What do you do about rural homelessness, poverty and crime, and so on. And I've submitted my report, and in the report, it also identifies that on the Roma website, if you want to see the details of the sessions, they're posted now. And outside of that, I had a number of emails from constituents about local things, including the condition of the Salmon Lake Road and others. And it is a tough time because of the way the weather is. It's not your typical winter. Last year, we were apologizing because of the massive snow dump, and this year we're apologizing because of the fickle nature of the weather, what it's doing to our roads. So anyway, that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Adams?
As Mario mentioned, I too attended the Roma conference from the 21st to the 23rd in Toronto, and I will have a report coming to council about it. It was quite interesting. On January the 24th, I attended the Recreation and Culture meeting. On January the 25th, I attended the West Prairie Sound Museum meeting. I've had a few calls, but they're all being settled and looked at, and that's about it.
Thank you. I've been relatively quiet. I was at the Recreation and Culture meeting on the 17th, better known by most people in the community as the pool. January 23rd, I attended the labor market annual report, which was actually, it was they held it in 2 different Zoom meetings, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And it was a good idea because there's just so much data that having it split, I think, helped us all understand it and maybe not fall asleep as all the numbers were coming at us. And then on February 1st, we had another meeting of the business committee, Seguin Business Committee. We have lost a couple of our members and are recruiting some others. The business people are busy running their businesses and find that coming to monthly meetings, they just can't get it together. Coming up, I think you all got it electronically from Don Rouse today, is the announcement of the Senior Connect. We're going to have a bunch of these at the libraries. I encourage everybody that can possibly attend on March 4th. You need to RSVP, but it is the Information for Senior Connect. It's a program funded primarily federally, and it provides all kinds of support for seniors in their homes, designed to keep them in their homes. It's a 2-year pilot project, and if we don't use it, the funding will be gone. So it's Monday, March 4th at the Rossell Memorial Community Hall from 10:30 to 1. It's free. It's got lunch included. I'm going to the Foley lunch tomorrow with a bunch of these flyers. Spread the word, because it is really quite something. I heard from someone who called, who needed some light bulbs changed. They were a senior that couldn't get their light bulbs changed. Somebody arrived the next day and changed 4 light bulbs. No cost, just a phone call to ask for that help. So anybody, spread the word. We want to use this. It's an incredible program trying to help seniors continue to live at home with safety and accessibility. So spread the word and get the posters out as much as you can, and attend if you possibly can. And that's my report. I think Jason has some news.
Thank you, Worship. Members of Council, I'll be rather brief. As most of you have alluded to, Mother Nature continues to marvel us with her diversification from one year to the next. Our our community services staff are out getting the outdoor skating loop ready, and unfortunately that's taken a turn. So we continue to work through the challenges. One big one that we're constantly keeping a close eye on, but we are confident because Mother Nature has not let us down for many, many years, is on the 24th of February will be the 39th annual sled dog mail run, starting here in Humphrey and finishing up in Rosso. Snow or no snow, it's a go. Okay. We'll figure out what we got to do to get those dogs running, but it's a prized event for our community, and it's really a spectacular day. So we encourage everybody to come out, mark that one on your calendars, February 24th. And as always, there's always tons of programming happening, whether it's through the township or through the Seguin Public Libraries. You can always check us out online or through our social media feeds to stay dialed into all the events that are happening throughout the community. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. It continues to be a busy place. Okay, we move on. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and addendum for February 5th, 2024 meeting of council. Could I have a motion, Ken and Mario? All in favor? And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 4:26 p.m. in order to address matters pertaining to Belvedere Heights Home for the Aged Board of Management for 2 issues. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege relating to Cogeco, potential litigation, and some economic development reports from our CAO. All in favor of moving into closed? Or first of all, I need a motion, sorry. Gail and Mario. And now all in favor. Thank you. So thank you very much. Hang on, but we got to do some of these things. Hang on. What time is it? Okay. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby rise from the closed session, declare the regular meeting reconvened at 6:17 p.m. Motion, please. Gail. Mario. All in favor? What else? Oh, gosh. Okay. I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-020, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an indemnification agreement between Cogeco Connection, Inc. and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Ken and Mario, all in favor? Motion that bylaw number 2024-018, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Gail. Ken. All in favor. Thank you. If you vote against it, you're fired. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council at 6:18 p.m. to meet again on Monday, March 4th, or at the call of the mayor. And Mario will be sitting in the chair.
I'll move that.
Mario visits.
Oh, Mario's the chair next month.
Yep.
Oh.
All in favor.
Some good questions.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. And I think the discussion was worth having tonight.